ready to become lawyer.
Ready to be lawyering.
Big lawyer.
1-800, are you lawing?
I'm good. We took Clover out to this big ol' open field. Nobody out there, so she got to run free.
Wow.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm good. I slept for like 2 hours because I was tired and it was hot. We're in an interesting situation where Philip does not have like a malicious bone in his body, really.
Sure.
So it's funny because when we let the door open and the kitties come in and they see each other, Cookie will hiss at Philip, especially when he gets close. But he just like doesn't really respond at all. So he's just like, it's like it doesn't mean anything to him. She's like, get the fuck out of my face. And he's like, I am gonna sit here.
I'll just, I'll be here.
So
Cookie's like, why do you not understand?
Yeah, it's like, get out of my face. And he's like, okay. But he's not like responding by hissing or anything. The only time he really responds by hissing is when it's dark and I think he doesn't recognize her. He's
So
like,
cute.
who is that?
Uh-oh, it's you.
Spooked. But yeah, so in the daytime we're gonna try to keep the door open a little bit more, and hopefully she warms up to him, because he's really like, he really has like not a single thought in his brain.
He's doing him gone best to make friends. He's just like, I am the only cat needed in this household. Yes, free Pupper. Pupper must be free. Otherwise, she destroys house. We also bought her a new toy. Bought her a little yellow bone. One of those, like, chewy kinds. And it, like, bounces on the floor when she drops it, so that's the most exciting part.
Wow.
Like, oh my god, I gotta get it.
But yeah, otherwise Cookie's adjusting well.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah,
good.
she's got her appetite back, and now she kind of like walks around the room and really likes the cat tree, which is really funny.
Aw, cute.
Yeah, it's a big cat tree, so very delightful. But yeah, so we just hope the cats will get along eventually.
They will.
That's the dream.
They inevitably will.
Yes, I hope so. I hope so. shall we play some Ace of Attorney?
Ooh, we gon' kick this case's booty. In the last part, I think.
I think this must be the last part. There can't be that much more.
Yeah, I don't think so.
24th October, 11:53 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber.
Ah, the knight errant himself.
Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes?
I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least.
I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago.
Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies.
As it turns out, Lord Van Zeeks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realized, isn't he?
Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock. And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man.
Make it sound deliberate.
I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes? In what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drubber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zeeks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow.
Susato is just saying what we're all thinking.
Exactly.
Yes! In fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Excuse me.
Oh!
Dr. Scythe!
Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe. Nay, Stevens, good day to you. I don't know how to say that part. I voiced her right.
I think so? I don't remember?
I think I did.
That sounds correct, so
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you.
It has been a considerable amount of time since this character showed up on camera.
What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you?
Damn.
Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me.
Well, alright then.
What? To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant.
The policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe. And I've accuse you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened.
That certainly won't be possible. Lord Von Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you.
She mentioned it too. This Pandora's box.
Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'll like it or not.
Huh?
Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits.
I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much.
Ah yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass.
All right, I understand. Thank you.
Good. Then I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth.
They let you bring snacks in?
Let's go. I mean, people got swords and guns and stuff, so...
What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. Give it to me!
The truth!
Show me the money! 24th October, 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom.
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready.
As the court is aware, the case under our scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation.
As seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord.
You just tired of losing!
True. He just keeps coming out here, and every time we go bap. Sit back down, Van Zieks.
So then,
to get a drink.
Let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zeeks?
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Two Spells?
Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak, and ready to be summoned.
Very well. Bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Two Spells to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Scythe.
And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork.
Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present it's all we have to go on. Oh my god! State your name and occupation for the court, please.
Is that Herlock?
Yes. Oh god, how did I do this voice again?
French.
It was like a French
lady.
saying. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspel. I am a waxwork artisan and the proprietress of the Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world.
Oh my! What expression is she carving onto that face?
A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
A waxwork model? Kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprits. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Asman. But of course I know him well. He is a part of my odious personage exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar. Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock. This is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask. But clearly it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information.
We calls this stuff tawdry?
Wow. Très dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tuspel's principles. What principles? The family to spells has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila, our principles.
There is a well-known legend about the two spells' waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tuspel's family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed.
Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now.
I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site.
You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We two spells will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask? Oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It's out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel's special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure. The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tuspel family principles. I enlisted the aid of the Great Digger, who created a mold for the aid in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
The gravedigger! The man sanctioned this!
Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it. The face of that monster.
I mean, we got witches and vampires. Might as well get some other shit in here. Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But two spells wouldn't be two spells if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this.
I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madame. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitnesses who saw it.
Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident of the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination.
This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Scythe. There has to be some reason for that. which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drebber were in on this crime together.
Cross-examination.
Let's take a look at this newspaper. Mad sheep rampage. Unexplained phenomenon grips Oxfordshire region. Locals reported a most remarkable circumstance in which folded sheep were seized with a sudden fright and leapt from fields and pens. Charles Darwin to receive Copley Medal. Like down here and stuff. Man rises from the grave. Executed criminal returns to the dead. This is like the clearest that like newspaper text has been.
I know. The great stink.
Parliament to finally address the foul issue. Ugh. Let's see. Oh, it's because here he says Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, a resident of its student dorms. We knew that though.
Yeah.
A gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. Oh my god! What the fuck happened here? Was the bal masqué to blame for the great blaze? The fire that engulfed the popular theater continues to draw attention, as reports that Her Majesty Queen Victoria herself visited the Royal Italian Opera to inspect the site and offer words of condolences to the theater's owner, Mr. Frederick Guy. Interesting. Okay. Wait. What is this? What is this? Oh, Drebber's contract. I see. Okay. Okay, let's start pressing. And that rumor would be a 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
Ah, right. I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else. Yes, that story will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my House of Horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. It was in Lowgate Cemetery, behind the prison, in the dead of night after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back to the stone slab covering his tomb and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life. The corpse climbed out of his own grave?
And then somebody shot him. Who? Who was it?
Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor. Perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they love stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital. But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it? Oui, the special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article will be produced in every newspaper imaginable.
Madame, might I say something?
Please go ahead, mademoiselle.
When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often, rumors contain elements of the truth.
Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe.
Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful?
It is not possible for the dead to come back to life. Sorry?
10 years ago, I was there in Logate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the Professor was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead.
I see. I mean, yeah, you probably would have woken up if you took a wax casting of his face.
It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate.
Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then?
It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know.
What sort of letters?
When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Kumka.
No.
My museum is famous, Missouri. To be made into a waxwork is an honor. And for some criminals, a symbol of status, even.
Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax.
And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. Our photo is the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor. Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of dispels.
Surely that's illegal, isn't it?
It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Tuspel Museum.
But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor.
Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret.
I understand. And now that the truth about this special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close.
Of course it will, as will your entire museum if you don't tread very carefully, madame.
That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you?
So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse?
Oui, exactement.
You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open, and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing, and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly.
Oh, dear. What a horrible thought.
Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It is because of rigor mortis.
A Wrigley Mortis?
Oh, dear.
Alright.
It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one. As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
I see. So that's why you wait.
Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. Huh. I wonder about that information the corpse just heard from Madame Tuspel's. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course, I do not mind at all.
I can't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
This is no time for jokes, Miss Susato.
How dare you? She's cute!
That was great.
Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien sûr. Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death. I think you said that it starts at the jaw, about 3 hours post-death, is that right? Oui, seka. I think it's seka, or maybe it's seisa. Mads! Mads, how do you say this fucking French? Taskete kudasai!
The French.
Of course, the exact direction depends a little on the season. Say ça? Oh, I hate French.
Say so.
I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed on the subject. No. That is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine. Well, I had no idea about it. Maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science.
I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you'd like.
I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear, I'll do my very best.
You say that dawn was approaching. What was the time of day then? Approximately? Approximately. Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
The execution took place on 17th June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year.
Indeed it did. First light would have been at around 4:40 in the morning.
That really is early. The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in an half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe. So I had to wait. Is it me, or does Mr. Sholm seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too?
You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madame.
I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant? Yeah, why not? Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture in the early sunrise, could you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be of significance. Hold on, where's that autopsy report? Death by hanging, confirmed at midnight, 17th June. Okay. That seems correct. Of course, if you would like me to.
You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant.
Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madame.
With pleasure, my lord. Oh, we're hydrating.
Oh,
Okay. Did you have reason to believe you might be discovered once the sun came up or something? I had paid the credit of... I had paid... oh my god, madam, 2 spells! I have smoked 18 cigarettes today.
how very French.
I had paid the grave digger money to keep my little secret, of course. But with the morning light, I knew that the warden from the prison would commence his patrol of the area. Couldn't you just have paid off the warden too, then? I had already paid the grave digger, as I said. You cannot buy the silence of everyone. Well, the secret is no longer a secret, huh?
The sunrise was at 4:40 a.m. that day, which means that it would have been around 4 when you began your sculpting work.
Oui, that must be correct. That would be when the grave digger gave me the signal to come out of hiding. Okay, so that's all I have to go on.
What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo?
For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow.
In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings and the trial will be over.
I agree. But interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all of this means more to Lord Van Zeeks than anyone. That's the impression that I'm getting anyway.
Yes, as do I.
After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well. It was before the onset of rigor mortis. So that is definitely not correct. We're just gonna drop a little save here. But we have the autopsy report. Yeah.
Take that.
Madam to spells, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And is that a problem? I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Quoi?
Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
Oh,
Wow, we're hydrating.
Double.
That's double slap hydration.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Eaters.
According to her testimony, Madame Two Spells was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madam? You are, yes? As I said, stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 or 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. You can't even fill your own hydrations? Oh, nah. Listen, if you're asking that we hydrate, you gotta also hydrate. It's the law. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already have set in. Oui. Yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong.
No coroner makes mistakes when reporting the time of death. The very idea is absurd.
In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time.
Impossible!
Order! Order! Council, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison, where the execution took place.
By heck!
Extraordinary!
Not in my day! My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
What fact?
The professor died that night, without question.
He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's lip jaw with my own hands. There was no... Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Die? Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case?
It's almost impossible to believe. But it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night.
Council, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened on the night of the professor's execution.
I mean, it's this article, right? He fucking rose from the grave. What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at the local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again.
Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press.
Can you be certain of that?
Are you serious?
The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened.
My word! Yes, indeed!
Mais oui! The young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself. But obviously the man made it all up.
And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him.
On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well.
What?
Are you suggesting, Counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place?
Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes.
You will substantiate your latest claim now then, Counsel. Who is the alleged witness of the staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago?
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Trevor?
The previous witness?
Special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tuspel's Museum of Waxwork. Recreates that decades-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and besides the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Oh.
Damn, dude, I'd be a spooked too.
Mm-hmm. Order! 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 Surely not, Counsel.
Drebber was there? In Lowgate Cemetery?
What is all this talk about, Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course. Madame Tuspels doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No. But that would mean...
Madame Tuspels. It would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber.
Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past. What?
How you know him? Oh my! Good gracious!
Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed at the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article?
Goodness me! Yes, here it is! The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber. A disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms.
Unbelievable. When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my House of Horrors, whether it was the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt a waxwork more of the man, did you?
Exactly. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today. Even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim, and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asmund, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why?
Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive. A criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect. Which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected.
But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information out of me.
Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks.
The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
Oh, let's go! Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office.
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Ooh!
Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together.
Order! 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 Very well. I will uphold your request. Bailiff, Send a subpoena with immediate effect, addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders.
All right then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out.
Thank you for your attendance at such short notice, Dr. Scythe.
I'm disappointed in you, Lord Van Zeeks. The freaking floating head of Herlock
so
right
funny.
there. You've completely betrayed the agreed policy of both Scotland Yard and the prosecutor's office.
Betrayal is not in my nature, as long as the truth isn't compromised. If it is, if there's even a hint of wrongdoing, then no matter whom it concerns or disgruntles, I will pursue the matter to the bitter end, as would any prosecutor worth his salt.
Mr. Drebber, you took the victim's life by means of a machine that you constructed in your workshop. And Dr. Scythe, as the investigating coroner, you were the first on the scene to examine the victim's body. It is the belief of the defense that you collaborated with each other and were both complicit in this crime.
And where's your evidence?
At present, we have no definitive evidence, but we do have a very significant clue.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking, of course, about the waxwork. This model of the killer known as the Professor, who was sentenced to death 10 years ago.
You don't need to tell me. I witnessed the man's execution with my own eyes, and officially pronounced him dead.
That remains to be seen.
Is that so?
According to newspaper reports from the time, on the night following his execution, the killer came back to life.
Tsk, don't waste my time.
And the sole witness to that mysterious event was you, Mr. Drebber, wasn't it? If what you saw in the graveyard that night 10 years ago wasn't some chilling fiction, but reality, then it would make you privy to a very great secret of Dr. Scythe's. A secret so profound if you compel the coroner to agree to collaborate in your evil scheme, in fact. Mr. Drebber, tell the court. Tell everyone the truth of what you saw that night in Lowgate Cemetery. So he was the student we saw it. You can see the resemblance, actually, can't you? With the man in magical spells on him.
Surely he's not going to claim he's really what he saw, especially not after all these years.
He was a research student at the University of London, was he?
A bit too clever for his own good, if you ask me.
What an interesting twist. When, at the time, not one person would take me seriously. Yet now here we are 10 years later, and suddenly my story matters, and in a court of law, too. Very well then, if everyone so wishes. Let's be frank, I'll tell you the truth of what happened that night, for what it's worth.
So, Mr. Drebber, your testimony, please, about the events of that night 10 years ago. You will tell the court exactly what you stumbled across in Lowgate Cemetery.
Yes, of course, as you wish. Witness testimony.
All right, let's take a little break here so that I can pee.
Okay.
A borb.
Penzix is about to get stabbed off screen, ain't he? No! It's okay, he'll ward them off by throwing wine bottles at them. Go lay down.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I have a popsicle, so I'm great.
Popsicle. Oh, I should check something real quick. Actually, I'll be right back. All right. Ready to continue?
Yeah.
All right, let's get it.
The reason I was in Lowgate Cemetery at all 10 years ago was for a spot of moonlighting, shall we say. Yes, the illustration in that newspaper article was based on what I witnessed that night. But thinking back now, I realized that I never actually saw the professor. Soon afterwards, I was visited by a young woman who sculpted a model of me from wax. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article.
Wait a minute. You're claiming you didn't actually see the professor now?
Of course, you'd have to have a screw loose if you believe a corpse can come back from the dead.
But so you're saying this article is...
Not worth the paper it's printed on? I would think that this would describe it perfectly, yes.
If the details in the article aren't true, it nullifies your argument for why Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe would have been working together.
So he's discrediting himself to cripple my argument.
Tell me, witness. You claim to have been in the cemetery on some auxiliary business. Can you elaborate?
That's right. Grave robbing, to be precise.
Well, I mean, alright.
As you know, Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Barclay Prison. So among students at the university, it had a reputation for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative. Of course, I never laid a finger on any valuables buried with the dead. So, you were one of the so-called resurrectionists. A particularly unpleasant scourge on society. Actually, my fellows and I went by another name, the Repurposers. It admittedly is a little bit clunky, but we were college students. Can you blame us? We didn't have any money.
Sounds better, buddy.
It does sound better.
But that is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with a bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add.
I see.
Out of interest, who drew the illustration for this article? Ah, yes, that was the reporter who exposed me. He sketched that right in front of me as I described the scene. Obviously, as time ticked on, I bitterly regretted what I'd done, claiming to have seen something I never truly saw. Foolish, very foolish.
Well, counsel for the defense, you may proceed to the cross-examination now.
At once, my lord. By moonlighting? You mean grave robbing, do you?
Surely you only need to look at the graveyard scene and my appearance to gauge the answer to that. The lantern and spade.
But who on earth would want to buy a dead body?
Any major hospital.
A hospital?
In order to better understand the human body, the study of anatomy is crucial to medical science. But there isn't a hospital in the world that has enough specimens to work with. Though obviously they can't openly express an interest in obtaining more by dubious means.
As As aspiring scientists, we young research students had no money to work with, as I'm sure you can imagine. So we made surreptitious arrangements with a hospital via some of our medical student acquaintances. We would never take anything of value from the graves. This was all for the furtherance of science, you see. And to eat some more ramen noodles. That's what we all told ourselves every time we stole into the graveyard at night, spade in hand.
You realize body snatching is a serious crime. If you were caught, you could expect the gravest of consequences.
We students were caught between the hammer and the anvil. We needed funds for research.
Professor Hairbrain said exactly the same.
I am quite speechless at the apparent levity with which you revealed this abhorrent behavior.
Well, if you wanted to know why I was there at Lowgate Cemetery, that's the reason. But I never expected it to end the way it did. That I regret to this day.
The strange happening at Lowgate Cemetery, which you now deny.
Not entirely. I ran to fetch the police at the time. You know, I was shaking like a leaf. But they didn't believe a word of it. In fact, I was very nearly arrested myself.
So you went to the papers instead.
I started big with the London News, but unsurprisingly, they didn't want to know either. In the end, though, it was the reporters from the gossip rags, the gutter press, that came to get my story. And it spread like the plague through the capital, as gossip-hungry Londoners lapped up the tale.
The story was in every single paper at the time, with the exception of some broadsheets.
And yet, only 2 or 3 of them actually interviewed me personally. Most of the accounts turned out to be very interpretive ghost stories.
What about the article in the Daily Circus?
That particular journalist found me at my dormitory. I don't know how, but he discovered my name. So I recounted to him exactly what had happened that night.
And from your description, he drew this illustration?
Precisely. That's how I learned that the condemned man was the infamous professor. Because the reporter told me so. I had no idea myself, you see.
Newspaper reporters are wont to snoop around in matters that don't concern them. So the scene portrayed in the illustration is accurate, then?
Well,
What are you talking about?
I think I explained already, didn't I? Lowgate Cemetery is at the rear of Berkeley Prison, so it was renowned among us students at the university for being haunted by the ghosts of condemned convicts. For some absurd reason, I was scared of the graveyard at night. And as a result, only too willing to believe that nonsense about the dead coming back to life.
But you said you actually saw it.
I said what I'd seen in my mind's eye. After all, resurrection is impossible, isn't it? You'd have to be unhinged to think otherwise. Unless, of course, you have some evidence that proves I encountered the professor that night.
I don't know. Is there any material evidence that could show he really did see the professor?
Uh,
I mean, this camera seems pretty sussy.
hmm.
I think maybe not. Yeah, we'll see.
If we have anything at all, Mr. Naruhodo.
I know, I need to present it against that irritatingly backtracking statement of his. The point is, that night was a pivotal moment in my life. That young woman being Madame Tuspel's, of course. Precisely. I must say, I didn't expect to run into her again like this, 10 years later. As I have explained, I went by the name published in the article, and comme ça, I found the man. Yes, the article in the Daily Circus, I think you said. I was a poor student with barely a penny to my name at the time. And the young lady put £5 in front of me.
So you readily consented to having a waxwork of yourself made and gave permission for it to be put on display.
I did. I should sell what little I had to sell, I concluded. Ah, oui, I remember now. I purchased something else from you that day, n'est-ce pas? Did you? I can't say I remember. What was it, madam? It's camera. Oh. Oh, yes. N'est-pas. N'est-ce pas? Say n'est-ce pas? Fuck French. I hate this language. That sucks ass.
Get it, Mads. You took a camera with you, sir. To what end?
To record the details of the bodies I disinterred. But I had no intention of ever visiting a graveyard again after that night, so I sold it. I hate fucking French. What the fuck?
No, pause, right?
Pas. Ew.
Correct our country bumpkin Americanisms, Mads.
Awful.
Ce n'est pas.
Ce n'est pas. Okay. Sure. Why not? But I still have it, monsieur. It is a part of the special exhibit in my house of horrors. I am very meticulous about such details. It is a Tuspel way.
It would seem, then, that this is the very camera Mr. Drebber took with him to Lowgate Cemetery on the night in question.
Huh. Yes. Interesting.
French must be stopped. It's sadly too late for that. We're here now.
The French.
I
must
room
be
with a
stopped.
French person. Can I get
Awful.
away?
This article, you mean, published in the Daily Circus. Wait, do we read this? Oh no. Yes, somebody. I was like, what the? Wait, that seemed like the same. No, it's okay, we're good. Yes, somebody informed the dean that it was my name that appeared in the article, and carelessly let slip that night after night. I was digging up graves. Hardly a
Oops.
model student, you might say.
Oops.
Yeah, I guess that kind of I guess that kind of would, you know, would kind of get you all kicked out. I was like, why did they kick him
I'd
out?
say
Oh,
so.
I guess he was doing that. The university's reputation was execrably defiled, and I was expelled as a result. Mon Dieu, I had no idea.
And having been run out of university, you found employment in a somewhat specialist trade.
You combine your knowledge of science with knowledge of stage magic to create various experimental machines intended to demonstrate never-before-seen technology. And you use those deceptive machines to trick the government and private investors into giving you money. Professor Albert Harebrain was just your latest victim, wasn't he?
Whatever are you talking about? I have no recollection of doing anything of the sort.
What's Draper up to? Why would he suddenly change his tune and recant his claim?
I wonder if it's perhaps because his circumstances have changed now.
What circumstances?
Well, if he admits to having seen the professor emerging alive from his grave 10 years ago. It would expose a secret in Dr. Scythe's past that she would desperately want to hide.
Oh, yes, of course. If Drebber and Dr. Scythe are working together now, then if Drebber were to betray her, there would be no reason for her to continue to cooperate. In that case, there's only one way around it. I'll have to prove he really did see it. Prove he really did see the professor's corpse coming back from the dead as he so originally claimed.
Yes, Mr. Naruhodo, exactly.
Let's see. I think it was here that they asked. Present evidence. Let's see. Well, I guess. Guess we'll just present the camera now. Nope.
No!
Hold on. Details the camera change at all? This is where the photographic plate goes, I think, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. Isn't it incredible to think that this is the actual camera Mr. Drebber used that night? I certainly never imagined a piece of evidence would be on display in Madame Tussauds.
She's very keen on everything being as true to life as possible, isn't she?
Is this man a robot?
It's a very good question, to which we don't have a very satisfying answer. We don't know what's going on.
Our answer is maybe, probably.
Oh, okay. Just the newspaper, I guess. Sorry, Mr. Drebber, but I don't believe that.
Don't believe what?
Your latest claim. You did see the professor on that night 10 years ago.
Oh dear. We seem to be at odds. But I was there, and you were not. I know what I didn't see.
The illustration with this article was drawn based upon what you told the journalists that you witnessed. A figure emerging from a tomb wearing an iron mask.
Yes, when the killer was tried 10 years ago. It was decided in the closed court's ruling that the man would wear the mask to hide his identity. It wasn't to be removed even during his execution and subsequent burial.
Not even the prison wardens were to see the man's face. But obviously, the provision of this mask was not public knowledge.
So, Mr. Drebber, as you've just heard, a lowly student of the University of London certainly wouldn't have known about the condemned man's mask. So unless you'd actually seen the professor that night, it's inconceivable that the artist would have included the mask in that illustration.
Order! Order! Well, Mr. Drebber?
It's a vile scene, isn't it? If you look closely. And as I've already been at pains to point out, I was utterly petrified. Which is why I had it in my head that I'd seen such a blood-curdling sight. But afterwards, I came to my senses, and I realized that I'd been mistaken.
You're still saying you didn't see it?
If you're stubbornly sticking to that story, witness, then amend your testimony to explain exactly how you think your eyes deceived you. Of course, only too happy to oblige.
I can't believe you're still not going to concede the point.
What I, in fact, witnessed was a fellow grave robber at work.
What?
A fellow grave robber? What are you talking about?
It doesn't even explain our counterpoint.
No, it doesn't.
Well, I wasn't the only one busy in the cemetery that night, you know. Other body snatchers were at work. Of course, when I saw one emerging from the hole he dug, my heart very nearly stopped. So that's the terrifying sight I actually saw, you see. You're claiming it was just another student on equally insalubrious business as yourself? Many of the medical students would wear metal masks to protect them from bacteria during dissections. Clearly, the fellow was using such a mask to protect his anonymity, wouldn't you say?
But there's more to the story, isn't there? The article goes on to say, in the next second, a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more.
We might assume that the sexton discovered the miscreants at work, perhaps, and fired upon one of them.
If a gravedigger had shot someone in the cemetery, I think it might have been a rather big news, my lord.
Yes,
I can only assume it was an embellishment bolted on later by the reporter.
Oh my...
Oh, she got something to say.
Excuse me.
Toto.
Madame Tispels? Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Oh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all. Monsieur Drebber could claim this now?
If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about?
Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gunshot.
Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know.
Ooh.
Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady.
That's a lady.
Please, Madame Tispels, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man.
I said nothing of the sort.
No, you were very explicit about the details. About the mask that the figure I was wearing. And the blood that splattered over you when he was shot.
Enough. Shut up, woman. You're making this all up.
That will do.
Her only crime is being French. Don't be a dick.
Mr. Drebber.
Yes?
You refute the account just given by Madame Two Spells?
I have no recollection of ever saying those things.
Come on, do you really expect us to believe you?
Control yourself, counsel. I will not permit baseless accusations in my courtroom.
Right.
Under the circumstances, I think it best that you supplement your testimony with a statement to clarify your position on this witness.
Very well.
And that's when we pull out the camera.
Shablam.
Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera?
That is a camera from that fateful night.
Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber.
And is that supposed to be significant?
Sure. This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed that the lens extends forward on the ends of some bellows. Like this.
What is that? There, just on the bellows. It looks like a dark red stain.
That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact.
Good lord! Are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a splatter of blood.
Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. Scythe?
It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all is simple enough.
I propose that Madame Two Spells' testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were splattered with blood from the gunshot wound.
Well,
And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night.
But why? Why would he want to do that?
Well, not for his own gain, it would seem.
Who's then? Who could benefit?
Mr. Drebber is obviously lying in order to protect somebody.
My goodness! He's shielding someone. Sweating.
Yes, my lord. And clearly, it's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed.
Well, counsel, who is it then? Who is this witness trying to protect by lying about what he saw that night?
The obvious answer is Dr. Scythe.
What? Whatever do you mean?
Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light.
What are you insinuating?
Imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor.
That would be an unprecedented scandal.
This is beyond a joke. Need I point out that the dead cannot come back to life? What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never actually happened.
Yes, that's exactly what it would be.
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one could escape, not in Great Britain.
But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact that the man did escape his hanging.
If that were really true, Counsel, the implications of misconduct would not stop at the supervising coroner. It would taint the honor of the entire judiciary, from the ground up.
And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret. Even if that meant being complicit in a crime.
You mean...
I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with the waxwork model and fabricated the autopsy report.
Ah!
Woo!
Ah!
Lord Van Zieks!
Pray forgive my freshly filled hallowed chalice, and a whole raft of other discourtesies now.
Goodness me!
Does anyone else feel it's getting a little hot in here?
It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest levels. So let me ask you one thing.
What's that?
If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night, only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger and disposed of him forever?
Well, boy, I have no idea at the moment.
We have too little information to work that out at present, I think.
I couldn't agree more.
The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend?
Considered what?
Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary.
Quite hard to imagine any sum of money being offered for research could warrant it.
To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness.
Well, I suppose.
And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits too.
Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Asman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no?
There is the contract, that's very true.
The motive for this case runs deep, though. I can feel it.
Using threats to force the head of the forensic investigation team to cooperate is extreme. especially for a government grant he had no guarantee of receiving in the first place.
If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Asman's life would have made no sense anyway. Which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money at all. He was just trying to kill Mr. Asman. But why? What was his motive then?
Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade.
Drop a little Saberino.
Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we?
My god, he fucking backs out of the way.
How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country?
At this point, I'm not prepared to listen to more of this outlandish conjecture without proof. So, counsel, present your evidence.
Alright, who exactly was Mr. Asman to Drebber? There's a connection there that no one's seen yet. I'm gonna have to present 2 pieces of evidence to show what it is. Yes, my lord. The evidence that establishes a motive and explains why the witness wanted the victim dead is right here.
Here! In the save!
Saves. And before we do that, let's take another break. Okay, we'll be back in a couple minutes, and then we'll see if we can figure this one out. Alright, I am back.
Right.
I brought some snacks also.
Snacky.
That was nice. I had a cookie.
Can we look at the newspaper again?
Which one? This one?
The one, yeah, with the professor and Enoch. Okay, I guess his name isn't in here.
I think it has something to do with this trophy.
Oh, can we look at it?
Have we read? Hold on. I already read this?
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah, alright.
What does it say?
There's a little metal plaque here. Look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery.
It seems rather ironic, doesn't it?
Clearly, Mr. Drebber really was a very talented scientist. Like, I think basically what happened was, Mr. Asmund was the reason he got, like...
Right, he got expelled or whatever.
Expelled, yeah.
I don't even know anything about. I mean, I guess so, because what else would we use the trophy for, but, yeah.
Right, the problem is that we need another piece of evidence.
Evidence that establishes a motive, explains why. Witness 1, the victim dead. Mr. Oda hereby enters into contract with, with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund labor. Okay, yeah. It was him trying to cover his tracks.
I'm still so curious about this Viking head. I want to know. Knock, knock, who's in there?
Okay.
Yeah, it just tells how he died.
Okay. Oh, can you examine profiles?
I don't think right now.
Oh. Oh wait! Stop! Wait, it is there! His name is in the article! It's right there in the corner of the photograph!
Oh, where?
That's what I was looking for!
Oh, Asmund! Aha! Okay, so, it's this newspaper article, my lord. Good eye.
That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter press nonsense that means nothing.
Yes, on its own, it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Mr. Asman dead.
What other evidence?
Counsel, you will present your supplementary evidence without delay. The evidence which, when cross-referenced with the newspaper article, establishes a motive for the deed.
It's this contract, my lord. Mr. Drebber, this is the contract you signed with Mr. Asman.
Yes, that's right. The very document, in fact. That proves I had no reason to kill the man.
No, I'm afraid not.
What?
There's something very significant that this newspaper article and the contract have in common.
Really?
And it's that common link that shows very clearly why you were determined to kill Mr. Odie Asman.
It seems the defense has uncovered something the rest of us have missed. So, my learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Where exactly is the link between this newspaper article and the contract?
What these two pieces of evidence have in common is a signature.
A signature?
The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person.
What?
As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Asman's signature at the bottom.
Let me see now. Oh, good lord, yes! They're identical!
In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Asman.
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive for the witness to murder Asman?
Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about that article in his testimony.
Grave robbing, you say?
Yes, exhuming fresh corpses to sell is reasonably lucrative.
That is quite beyond the pale. You would invite divine retribution, sir.
Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. It caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grace to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article.
At the time, you were a student of the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, this single newspaper article changed your entire life.
So, Mr. Asman used to be a newspaper journalist, did he?
did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Mr. Asman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network, thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as reporter.
So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article, written by Mr. Asman.
Enough.
She burp, she whop.
Stop this endless drivel about my life.
What?
Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber.
You think you know me? How
Me?
dare you? Yes, it's true, I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back.
What do you mean?
Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research. But they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or other after all.
Good gracious.
Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that?
Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me?
I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all.
How dare you?
And I have evidence to prove it.
How are you in a position to say anything about me? I don't know you from Adam. Who are you? You don't know my life. Fine, if you think you have evidence, go ahead. Show it. What could you possibly have to disprove the idea that I was happy to leave university because I lacked talent?
Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? We found it at your workshop.
Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science?
What exactly is this trophy, Council?
It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord.
There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future.
Good gracious.
Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then, you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of this one newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, but when it dawned on you that he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear that you had no intention of forgiving the man.
The truth is,
The great Ace Pepperoni. Yep. Finally, he's going to fold.
Fine. Clearly, this has run its course now.
what?
I admit it. All of it.
What?
What are you doing?
It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim. On the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago.
No.
Good lord! Ah.
Dr. Saif, do you realize what you're saying, woman?
Woman. It's all true.
That woman,
day.
she's wearing pants.
When I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself.
Yes, dear, the Crystal Tower. The Crystal Tower Alliance raid?
Dia's already got his weapons ready. Armored up. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket.
Dr. Saif,
Sa-
you
Oh,
will
sorry.
go along with my plan. From someone who knows the truth about what really happened that night, 10 years ago.
All the instructions were there in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now.
Why on earth would you buckle now?
Well, there's no point in trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished.
So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything.
Surely it goes without saying.
You admit your part in it too, then?
I admit nothing at all.
What? I mean, are you surprised?
Have you forgotten that the kinesis machine was ripped to shreds by an explosion? Short of me admitting to a crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No!
Order! 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 Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with his plan. And Lord Van Zeeks.
Yes.
I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. I have heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of this court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain.
Very true. It had slipped my mind.
Isn't he one of your closest friends?
As the court has heard, Dr. Scythe has admitted to the allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt.
You mean...
At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection?
None, my lord.
Oh, congratulations, Mr. Naruhodo. You've proven Professor Harebrain's innocence. Without further ado, then, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss.
I don't know. This doesn't feel quite right. Why did Dr. Scythe suddenly admit to it like that?
Is everything all right, Mr. Naruhodo?
Like you said before, the way the trial is set to end now, the judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty. But is that really what we want? Well, yes?
Yes.
What the defense should be pushing for now is... I mean, we're buckled in here for this wild ride. We know what the game wants.
Iggy
Is he arguing with his client again? It's hard to say.
The defense objects to the trial ending at this time, my lord.
He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I beg your pardon?
We demand one final testimony.
This man's gone bananas. You do realize I'm about to adjudicate in favor of your client, I presume?
Mr. Ryunosuke, what the fuck?
What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that.
We ain't in our right mind.
Mr. Naruhodo, what exactly are you thinking?
The truth, the whole truth, and a way to bring it all out into the open.
Right.
Yes, in hindsight.
Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand? Do not falter, whatever may come to pass.
I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced
course he
that this
knew.
would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client. and to secure an acquittal.
Obviously.
But that's not all. I believe that I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case until every last detail is laid bare. And that is why the defense calls for further testimony from Dr. Scythe.
Testimony from me? About what?
About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber.
In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. Hey. Like that? As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination. Oh?
Pray forgive my careless handling of that hallowed bottle. I slipped.
That's what you call it?
What is your objection, Lord Van Zeeks?
The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony from the witness.
Don't be stupid.
If there is more to this case than has yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end.
You are what?
Lord Van Zeeks.
This is most irregular, to say the least. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Scythe, you will testify for the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder apparently committed by Mr. Drebber. Very well. It all began at the scene when I saw the waxwork and the note tucked inside its jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. The body had to be arranged in certain ways to implicate the defendant, which was my job. I enlisted the help of the entire forensic investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it.
So I was right, the stage and the machine were all specially designed for the deception.
So it seems. And all meticulously prepared. You did well to see through it. You're a very shrewd boy.
So
Boya?
kind of you to say. Absolutely a boya moment there.
And what about this autopsy report then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all? That's a terrible corruption. Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you. we must be thankful for small mercies, I suppose. Well, I believe that testimony has clarified everything. There's no particular need for a cross-examination, I would say.
No, I disagree. I can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. Just look at that expression on Dr. Scythe's face.
She's smiling.
She's smug. It's the defense's right to cross-examine any witness following testimony.
Tisk. What is it about you Japanese that makes you all so doggedly persistent? Oh, the racism. Come on, lady. Very well, if you so desire, counsel, proceed with the cross-examination.
Yes, my lord. Speaking of the Crystal Tower, Tyler, how far along are you in Final Fantasy XIV?
Mata!
From what you described before, it sounds like the note was anonymous. Did you have any idea of who was behind it? Leveling arch right now? Fair enough.
There are very few people in the know about what really happened 10 years ago to start with. But anyway, I've never heard of this engineer, so no, I had no idea.
Despite not knowing who was behind the plan, you went along with it?
I had no choice. Protecting the professor's secret was my only concern.
But the horse has bolted now. The stable door will never shut again. Scotland Yard's reputation will be immeasurably damaged as a result of all this.
Yes, thank you, Lord Van Zeeks. I'm well aware of that. So, as I understand it, what you found in the birdcage was the waxwork model. Where, then, was the victim's body?
So you knew about the special construction of the stage used to carry out the trick then?
It was quite obvious what had happened with the victim and the waxwork.
And you switched the two over, didn't you? In other words, you recorded the victim's body as having been discovered in the Crystal Tower. And the waxwork?
I wrapped it and sent it by carriage to the specified address at the specified time.
Why were you given such directions?
Presumably so it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to Madame Tuspel's.
I see. And then you put the birdcage back on the experimentation stage?
Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still.
I suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail. When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this?
Yes. The instructions in the engineer's note said something along the lines of... fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Harebrained alone could have killed Asmund.
So, you mean that was your doing?
I fetched Harebrained's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage. And took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen. Alone, Doctor. I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in the dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest.
And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death.
Exactly.
So, the actual cause of death was...
The trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop. My word.
What is it, Miss Usato?
Something about Dr. Scythe's last statement is playing on my mind, that's all.
Yes, mine too. Dr. Scythe?
There's really no need to shout. I can hear you perfectly well.
The defense calls for you to add what you just said to your formal testimony.
Oh, which part?
What I wanted to supplement her testimony with is what she did to the victim. I'm guessing it has to be...
Yeah.
Yeah. How you stabbed Mr. Asman in the chest. That part.
Fine, if that's what you want. But there's really no need to point.
Points.
The prosecution concurs.
This is a lady, y'all. Both y'all don't need to be pointing. Very well. You will supplement your testimony now, witness. If you wish, my lord. I stood over the victim's corpse where it lay in the toppled cage and plunged the screwdriver into the chest. Wait, can you look at the photo of him in the Oh, this is the show. She stood over him in the cage and then plunged the screwdriver in. So we first where it lay in the top of it.
So it was you who stabbed Mr. Asman with this.
Yes, far easier than dissection, I assure you. No precision required.
What a welcome change.
The victim died instantly from a snapped neck. All I did was carry out the instructions I've been given.
As unflinchingly as ever, no doubt. I imagine you didn't bat an eyelid when you drove the weapon into his body.
There was no need to bat my eyelids.
And what else did you do to twist the facts? Remind the court, why don't you?
If you wish.
screwdriver was found poking through the grill in the base of what remains of the kinesis machine. I mean, I guess, like, my kind of guess here is just, like, they didn't find him with the stab wound in his, or the screwdriver in his chest. Not quite. I've got a nasty feeling that this inconsistency points to an extremely uncomfortable truth.
What on earth is the matter, Counsel? Have you lost your tongue?
I apologize, my lord. Dr. Scythe, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation.
Out with it, my learned friend.
There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death.
The court has already examined that photograph in depth. There's nothing new we can learn from it.
Yes, we have already considered it, that's true. But now we know the facts to be different.
What do you mean?
I believe we should let the defense explain. Where in this photograph would we see the alleged inconsistency with the witness's statement?
So it either has to be the chest or the glass from the crystal tower, right? I'd say we just go with the glass. The point that makes no sense is... Oh no.
Oh, Bing. Apparently the victim was lying dead in the birdcage when Dr. Scythe stepped in the chest. That was the essence of her testimony.
I lost my train of thought.
Don't worry, Mr. I'm sure you try to turn it back into a got it.
Let's just try that one again. Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downwards direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, Counsel? If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely expected. Ah, of course. No, that's not what happened.
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Scythe made it very clear in her testimony just now that the point at which she stole Professor Hairbrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage out of sight. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop. And if the victim had really been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in the picture is inconceivable. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downwards from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Asman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Scythe, your latest testimony was a total fabrication. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified that contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here.
What? What sort of misapprehension?
Dr. Scythe? You claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant. And you claim that you authored a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie. Because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer.
If that is the case, what is it, man?
Counsel, you've clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Scythe's story is shown to be a lie by the contradiction in her testimony?
I mean, how she was coerced, right? Or the stuff.
Shown to be a lie by the contradiction in her testimony. I mean, she definitely lied about how she stabbed him.
I mean, she probably
But-
lied about all these things.
Yeah, I mean, honestly.
Could be any of them. Let's see.
I mean, we just proved that she lied about how, about where she stabbed him.
Yes.
The answer is very simple if you consider the sequence of events. If, when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downwards as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting or sitting upright at the time.
But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side when it fell beneath the stage.
Yes, it would, which tells us that the victim must have been in that position of his own accord.
That's impossible. The man was dead, remember?
No, that is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force. But Mr. Asman didn't die in the fall.
Jesus.
He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came round, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage. Just as Dr. Scythe appeared.
Wait, but didn't he break his vertebra?
Well, well, we'll see if they explain that.
If the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything.
I mean, it still begs the question.
A murder.
I don't know if you get up with broken vertebrae. Ah.
Mr. Odie Asman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Harebrain. Nor was it the mastermind behind the stage trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Scythe.
I guess that makes sense. Mr. Drebber was out here to make money.
Order! 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 Can this possibly be true?
Or I guess he could have also been out to kill him, and he just failed.
Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him?
Huh? Huh?
You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of a far worse crime, cold-blooded murder.
Oh, do shut up. You're so desperate now. You're making all this up as if I would do something like that. Ooh! Ooh, yes, Sato Igiyari!
I assure you the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruhodo has established the facts, using evidence and logic alone.
Ha! Logic. Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it.
What? What do you mean?
Tisk, I'd have thought it was obvious. A motive. What about the broken vertebra? You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Asmin?
Asmin was involved in any number of criminal activities from coercion to theft to murder. But there is no known connection to Dr. Scythe here.
I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched.
True, there's
He
no
was
obvious
lacking
motive.
A working spine!
There's still something in the back of my mind. I sure feel like I've seen something somewhere that hints why the coroner might have done this.
Yes, I might have tampered with the crime scene and concocted a fake report. But murdering someone for no reason is a very different story.
No, when you questioned what possible reason you could have for wanting to kill Mr. Asmin, something did come to mind.
What? What was it, Counsel? Enlighten the court at once.
Yes, we saw it yesterday, didn't we? Something that seemed strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Dr. Scythe would have wanted to kill Mr. Asmin. Scalpels, the screwdriver, the iron mask. I mean, the iron mask, right? Surely?
I guess? Wait.
Because, like, it's not clear that she always had the key, right? But she does have it now. It's the iron mask. Okay, I'll be right back 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You've lost me.
Huh?
Oh,
no, we're wrong.
I think it's... well...
Okay,
let's
give it another try.
Wait, weren't scalpels mentioned earlier?
I think they were.
I just don't remember because it's been a long time.
Yeah, they were. They definitely mentioned scalpels at some point, but like when that was like, it was like ages ago. Okay,
I do think it was in relation to her.
It's a scalpel, or rather, scalpels.
Did you say scalpels? Oh!
Wait, that's me. It would appear that this word has struck a chord, Doctor.
You. Come on, out with it.
It was yesterday when we visited your laboratory. Yesterday was months ago. Look at this big, thick book here.
Ah, it appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think. Oh?
What is it?
It's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but... Well, one entry seems rather strange.
In what way?
They're buying 500 scalpels every month.
$500 scalpels a month.
It is rather a question of what the fuck is going on there. At first I wondered what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually I realize now it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant. It's the money for them, disappearing every month from the department's accounts.
Ooh.
Asmon's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding. Tracing the money from the forensics investigation team's account to find where it was going would be extremely straightforward.
10 years ago, when Mr. Asman was still a journalist, you wrote this article about Mr. Grebber. And wrote this article about Mr. Grebber. He may well have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Scythe's darkest secret he would use to rack money from her for the next decade.
Her darkest secret? Good lord, you mean...
I don't know what happened on the night of that execution 10 years ago, but clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Asman in the heart with all your might. To silence the blackmailer who knew your darkest secret forever.
You'll never understand. None of you. What we've had to keep covered up all these long years.
As very little of the machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb, the truth of this case can never be properly established, unless you speak out.
And if you decide not to, it's very possible that Courtney Scythe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done and tell the court the truth about what happened.
10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to sever the hold that fate's had over you all these years.
Super high voltage, instantaneous kinesis. I mean, really. It's the addled-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know.
Oh no!
They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid eyes shining like a little child's. They make me sick. I cannot abide their foolishness.
Careful, Mr. Drebber. You're hurting Professor Harebrain's feelings.
I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it? So you admit it. You admit that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim.
Yes, I admit it. I did it all in the name of revenge.
Revenge for the future that Mr. Asman's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Asman, did it?
Which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see.
The condemned convict that you saw rising from the grave in Lowgate Cemetery 10 years ago. If your account of those events was all true,
Then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened. Even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had.
He should be a prosecuting lawyer. Honestly, really, at this point, he actually, like, really, he should be. You actually just do so much prosecution work.
It's because they make us not only like prove that our dude's innocent, but we also have to find the actual guilty party. So that involves prosecuting them.
But Renu, we have to find the truth.
So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model. In order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well. Or on Dr. Scythe, to be precise.
It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asman turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper. An article on the front page caught my eye. About the coroner who'd handled that bogus autopsy being appointed head of a new forensics team. When I learned that news, my targeted processes started to devise the plan.
what a horrid tale.
He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wiles against him, for revenge. And have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I'd had to suffer.
Your actions against those who'd ruined your future were justified as revenge, at least to yourself. Certainly no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you?
Did I?
Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis, but you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew that he would be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this, your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man.
I...
Lord Van Zieks, What of Dr. Scythe?
An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted, and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber.
A most regrettable situation indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. It really is a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Hairbrain.
Oh, yes.
It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized.
I still believe.
However, I think we can assume now that all the sordid details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, but I'm pleased to say you are absolved of all guilt.
This whole experience has taught me a very great but painful lesson. Me, this dedicated scientist, this devotee of natural philosophy. I've been selfish and self-centered, and above all, a fool.
Professor, I mean, it's true, but it's really sad to hear you say it like that.
No!
Like, my God, you are a scientist. You couldn't have run a test experiment before you tried it on a person?
Oh my god.
I spent my life thinking of nothing but my research. Misguidedly believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to, despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process, I've caused others pain and misery. Others who are far, far greater people than I.
No, Professor, that's not true.
What?
Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You are not to blame in any way.
You believe the scientific
nice
myth that
friend.
came after this point in time? Yeah, but like, still, you know? Even if it did, one would think you would try it on like anything before a person, right?
Yeah.
Like a snake or something, maybe?
Anything, really.
And Zeke's.
And the derision with which he referred to you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams. That's laudable, not laughable.
You being so nice!
No one has the right to deride another for such choices.
Thank you, Barrack.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury,
Yes, my lord.
it is this court's expectation that you find the defendant not guilty of the charge of which he stands accused. I presume there are no objections? And then they're like,
None from me, my lord.
Certainly not. This trial has really made me think. But this is the right decision.
It's all been proven methodologically and rigorously. I have no misgivings whatsoever.
Oh my god, corn child.
What's that? He's done, is he? It's all over.
I don't know what's become of the yard these days. I don't recognize the place.
Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant.
Woo!
Woo! Confetti! Court is adjourned.
It's over. That was some trial. "24th October, 4:33 p.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber." Professor, what a splendid outcome, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is. Congratulations, Professor Hairbrain.
Mr. Naruhodo, Miss Susato, I am truly beside myself with gratitude. How can I ever thank you enough? Well, I'm just glad it's all been cleared up. That you realize you were just caught up in a bad situation. Right now, you know, if I had that research grant money, I'd give the whole lot to you, every penny.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's very kind, but I'm just a student, so...
We don't need any financial reward.
We need to pay rent.
Yeah, what? We need a
Your
financial
acquittal is more
reward?
than enough.
Oh, dear. Oh, what can I do? Aha! How about this, as a memento? The paper about my hypothesis is inside. Well, just as a memento, then. Thank you.
I've been wondering, Professor. What are you going to do now?
Oh my, yes. What am I gonna do? My hypothesis and my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. I must explore the great exhibition whilst I'm here too, and see if new inspiration hits me.
Oh, yes. That's a wonderful idea.
I can't allow that.
Oh!
Lord Van Zeeks! What are you doing in here? Barrack!
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert.
Well, if I'm honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey.
You're one of the few true friends I have.
Oh!
I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or
Ah!
the defense.
Sorry? Or the defense? Did I just hear that right? I always knew that you had my best interests at heart. Don't worry.
Oh, kawaii.
How about you show me around while I'm here in town? It's
Oh,
been a long
please.
time since we left university. We have a lot to catch up on.
Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you.
Oh!
What?
From there, you'll cross the channel and make your way back to
Huh?
Germany. I've already purchased the tickets.
But no! Hold on a minute, Barrack. What about the great exhibition? This is the chance of a lifetime for me. I want to look around.
The White Cliffs.
No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea.
Sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Barrick.
Lord Van Zeeks? What's all this about?
Unnecessary precaution.
Oh, because of his whole like curse thing or
the
whatever.
Reaper's curse.
Oh.
Yes, I think I understand.
You do?
Well, Iris told me that when you met Lord Van Zeeks at his office some days ago, he asked how Mr. Natsume was doing.
Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time. And thinking it was nice of him to ask.
The point is, Mr. Natsume is still alive and well. Even though it's been more than 6 months now since he stood trial with the Reaper as the prosecutor.
You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas?
Has a radius.
Those in the Reaper's sights meet their ends days or sometimes months after their equator. That's been the pattern up to now.
But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent.
True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. But I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend.
Cute.
Barrick!
Oh.
Like the mustached Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once.
Right.
Okay.
Does your friend-shaped package get any say in it?
No.
Goodness! Was this your intention all along then, Lord Van Zeeks?
In court, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless. And yet, sometimes I feel as though I don't understand him at all.
Got that tsundere vibe.
It's time to go, Albert. Back to the prison for the time being.
Oh.
Yes, all right. Well then, Mr. Naruto. Thank you so much for everything.
Not at all, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Best wishes, Professor Hairbrain.
Well, once the dust has settled, you must come and visit me in Germany.
Oh.
Anyway, goodbye for now.
Oh. Bye.
Now, my Nipponese friend.
Oh, yes? I thought you'd gone too.
We have matters to discuss. Could you spare me some time?
Okay.
You want to talk with me?
Ooh.
I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes.
Why always the courtroom?
Well, that was strange. For some reason, I didn't get that sense of impending doom as he walked away this time. The enigma, Barrick Van Zeeks. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer awaits us in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes then. October, 4:58 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom.
So, are you satisfied? You saved a guileless scientist from a great injustice.
Yes, I think so. I'm relieved, at least, that the man's innocence could be proven.
Anyway,
Huh?
I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from.
Sure, an explanation for the racism would be great.
Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagine you saw me as a pretentious child from an unimportant land who had no business being here. But now I think differently. You clearly know our ways, so I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please?
The professor. I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest.
He took your brother's life.
Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zeeks. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens, he was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan.
Oh! If it was 16 years ago, then one of them could have been my father.
Of course, I remember Dr. Mikotoa well.
I had no idea.
I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to the 3 visiting Nipponese.
So, you've actually met my father.
He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved.
I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks. Truly.
Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyway. So he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I have found myself in a very dark place indeed. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time.
In plain sight?
Are you aware of political events 10 years ago? It was a period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between the British and Japanese empires.
A new treaty was being forged, I think.
Correct. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was being concluded. The leaders of both countries were deep in extensive political discussions. Which is why this particular killer's appearance in court was conducted as a closed trial. If the British public had known the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, but our 2 nations could very well have ended up at war.
What? A war? Between Britain and Japan? Wow, I wonder what that would be like.
But that would mean... Oh my! You mean to say the professor was...
真理が終わった時、時が来た。そう思った。
Oh my god, the voice acting.
貴公たちがこの恐るべき殺人鬼と対面する時がな。あの老人形の館の女主人から仮面の鍵を借り受けた。その目でしかと確かめるがいい。10年前の真実。
これがプロフェッサーの正体。
その通り。
今まで考えたこともありませんでした。英国犯罪史上最悪の事件、その殺人鬼の正体が日本人だったなんて。
待ってください。この面影、どこかで見たことがある。そんな気がいたします。
Oh.
Oh!
父上。
Oh my.
Let her go.
あ、葬儀。僕の親友、麻生木一馬。1年の時を経て今、すべての記憶を取り戻して。目の前に立っていた。
なるほど。
Yeah, his forehead looks naked without him headband.
Yeah, literally, unfortunately, his haircut was actually always like that. It was always the headband.
カズマ様。
御言葉法務女子。長い間ご苦労だった。礼を言う。私の代わりに友をここに導いてくれた。
Oh.
カズマ様。
やっぱり生きていたんだな、麻生木。
貴様にも礼を言わねばならない。何しろそいつを守ってくれたのだからな。
麻生木の家に代々伝わる名刀、カルマ。日本を出発するとき、あいつが身に帯びていた。
Glad the thruple's back together. That was my first thought too.
日本人の魂であり、いつもそばに置いておきたいと。そしてあの事件が起こって、僕は須里さんからこの刀を託されたんだ。お前が残した思いとともに。こいつがあるといつもお前が見守ってくれている気がしていた。
やっとたどり着きました。父上。
父上、 まさかお前知っていたのか。その面影だけどとても信じられない。殺人鬼の正体が麻生木一馬の父だったなんて。
You gonna
Bro,
wait?
it's just a wax model.
Madame Two Spells is going to be so upset.
She's gonna fucking ask for money.
She's gonna have a conniption.
なるほど。貴様と積もる話はあるが、今はその時ではない。また会おう。
Okay. Whatever you want.
麻生木一馬は僕たちを残して法廷から出て行った。
My man's is still here, yeah.
So, he's the living after image of the man who took my brother's life, is he?
Yes, Kazuma Asogi, my best friend.
3 months ago, when Lord Strongheart introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there, some connection.
But why did Lord Strongheart do that? Why did he make Kazuma Lord Van Zeke's apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia, too.
The man was apprehended, even executed. But his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I thank you for meeting with me as I asked.
Oh. Oh.
"10 years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father from the train. For me, it was the first time I'd ever seen him.
Huh?
Poor Susato-san. All this is tied up with painful memories for her, too. She's never talked about this with me before, though.
It took time to adjust to having father around, but just when I was starting to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that the friend had left behind a son. A boy, 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father. So he was studying to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asogi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
親友は束の間僕たちの前に姿を現して再び消えた。そしてその瞬間、止まっていた時は動き出す。巨大な運命の車輪が回り始める。きしむような音を聞いた気がした。 それは確かに何かが始まり何かが終わるきっかけだった。
End.
Wow.
Bum, 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 bum. Okay, cool. Looks like the next one is called Twisted Karma and his last bow. Or
Whoa!
Well, all right then. It's a great place to end. We're right on time, right on schedule. So,
Wow, that
thanks
was
for,
huge.
Yeah, that was big reveals happening this week. So, I guess we will see you next week then for the start of episode 4. Wait, are there 4 or 5 cases in Great Ace Attorney 2?
I don't know.
I guess I'll have to look this up. Let's see. There are 5 cases. Okay, so oh my god, there's so much video game. Holy shit. So yeah, I guess we will continue next week, starting episode 4. I could have sworn that we were on like the last case, but like I guess not. Because the first game had 5 episodes, and I think the second game also has 5 episodes. So
Yeah.
we're like in it.
We're in it.
We're in it. I mean, we're definitely hitting that. We're definitely hitting that like plot climax. It's time for whack shit to start happening. All right. Well, thanks for coming. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Hey, bye.